My name is Hannah G. I'm the curator of Galerie. The evening is going to take the following form. So I'm just going to give a few remarks. And we have ASL interpretation by Cardially here. Karen Fowler, the CEO of the St. Boniface Hospital Foundation, is going to give a few remarks as well. And Charles will then give a talk. And after the talk, you're welcome to ask questions. Tonight's talk is being videoed by Lee here. And yes, I think that's all of the housekeeping. So, Cardially Yours, it has been extended. It was going to finish in 2 weeks. It's been an incredibly popular show, so we're extending it to May. So if you know people who haven't seen it yet, please let them know that it's going to be up for a little bit longer. And as part of this exhibition, we've been doing some other programming as well. So some of you may be aware of a choral composition that took place. We're a choir, we're singing a piece that had been commissioned also from in the Cardiac Sciences unit that was composed by Ashley Owl because of the relationship between the heart and the lungs. And that took place in Charles's exhibition. So it was an incredible event which was all about elevating and sharing the amazing work of Cardiac Sciences, and also so many of the stories that are associated with that unit as well, which Charles will be telling you about his story. I'm going to give the hospital's land acknowledgement. So the St. Boniface Hospital, as you know, is located on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Assiniboine nations, the Dakota, the Dene people, and of course the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge with gratitude that our water is sourced from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories, and we acknowledge the harms and the mistakes of the past. Recognizing that we are all treaty people, we dedicate our efforts towards a more loving and compassionate world, as well as moving forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. And I think that the history of healing, of storytelling, of collaboration, of real in-depth interrogation of relationships and how we affect each other, our relations with each other, is something that has been happening on these lands for millennia. And I love that we are part of this cosmic lineage that is associated with the space that we are in now. So as you know, this exhibition is by Charles Romero Venzon, who is a Winnipeg artist. Technically, he's an incredibly accomplished artist, and I think what you can see in this exhibition and in some of Charles's other work is that his emotional sensitivity and his aesthetic sensitivity is incredibly accomplished as well. I was so delighted that Charles agreed to undertake this commission, which I invited him to do on behalf of Galerie. And seeing how he's worked in the hospital, seeing the relationships he's formed with people, his gentle and persistent curiosity, has really been a lesson to me. I've learned so much from him during this process. I'd like to thank him. Thank you very much. It's been such a pleasure working with you. And I'd really like to thank the St. Boniface Hospital Foundation, which Karen heads. They're an incredible organisation. They fund so much of the life-saving work that happens at the hospital, and they fund this gallery as well. And I think it speaks to their vision, that the understanding of what health actually means and what creates good health outcomes, that Galerie has such good support. I'd also like to thank the Cardiac Sciences unit, who took a punt and replied to my email saying, do you fancy this idea? And I said, let's talk. So that was an amazing opportunity to have with them. And the hospital itself, an incredible amount of support from the hospital as well. All the departments, the carpentry department, the painting department, the printing department, let alone all of the staff and physicians and nurses and digital technology operators. They've all been part of the stuff that we do here. So, thank you all for coming. I'm going to hand over to Karen, who's going to give a few remarks, and then we'll hand over to Charles. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for gathering with us tonight in this space of hope and healing to hear artist Charles Romero Venzon talk about what inspired this very special project, Cardially Yours. I'm delighted to help open what I'm sure will be a very insightful conversation about the bridge between art and healing. With its cardiac focus, it's a perfect fit for our hospital because we are Manitoba's Cardiac Centre of Excellence. It is the kindness and support of our community of donors that ensures that spaces like the Galerie, Buhler Galerie, and exhibitions like Cardially Yours continue to thrive. Everyone in our community plays a vital part in healing, much like staff do during operations and procedures. St. Boniface Hospital Foundation is proud to play one of those parts. And we congratulate Charles on a very successful exhibition. I was very excited to hear about the extension of it. Congratulations. So thank you all for being a part of this community and for being here this evening. And with that, I'll turn it over to Charles.
Okay, well, I'm facing this way because the slides are here, so excuse me for being sideways. Thank you, everyone, for coming to my talk for this exhibition, Cardially Yours. The talk should be about 20 minutes, and there will be time for Q&A afterwards. So for the talk, I would like to share with you my experiences of making photographs in the hospital. I'll talk about my first day jitters. I'll provide you with visual context with where certain images had been made and what the challenges were in those spaces. I'll talk about the group illustrations of objects created by my dad, Claro's grandchildren, and myself. And then finally, on the topic of family, I'll share a bit about the significance of the group family portraits at the Prairie Dog Central. From day one, when I learned I would have the opportunity to set up my camera and capture before and after photographs of a stent procedure, I was thrilled. I met Denise, the Y2 floor manager. She walked me through all the places I could work, and she told me that she informed all the department heads that I was going to be there. I thanked her. I felt set. My game plan was to find my frame, figure out my lighting, get the shot, notate the height of the camera, the settings, and mark the ground to where the tripod was placed so I could go back to the same spot-ish post-procedure. My first exposure was at 6:25 a.m., and by 6:36 I had my first shot. Fantastic. It's going to be a cakewalk, I thought. Now, what? So when people started to come in for their shift, nurses, doctors, technicians, cleaning staff, porters with patients, the smart thing to do would have been to introduce myself and talk about my game plan with everyone I had seen, communicate how I can achieve my artistic goals without getting into anyone's way or waste anyone's time. But of course, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I really had no game plan except for the before and after series and making portraits. I wasn't even too certain if I was going to have the courage to make any of those that day. It was like being invited into a beehive. I was disoriented and I felt out of place. So I did the next best thing. I made myself look very busy photographing their expendable equipment. I found myself skirting around the main stage of where the procedures occurred in a large walk-in storage room for expendable tools. I tried to look so important and that I truly belonged there. I was and am genuinely interested in what these things do and what their purpose is in the procedure, in the process of getting a stent done, for example. But I felt like I was missing an opportunity to connect with all these people so I could make images that made it feel like I was with them in their work. While I was photographing the product, one of the nurses finally asked me what I was doing. I was able to introduce myself and say my shtick. Hi there, my name is Charles. I work with the Galerie Buhler Gallery, which is located downstairs, and I am making photos that highlight the people that work in cardiac sciences. Would you be open to having a portrait made by me? Would it be okay if I captured you while you were at work? Thankfully, they said yes. We became friends. But you're probably wondering, if they are such a friend, why on earth would their face be blurred? Right. Well, at the time of principal photography, our release forms were still in their approval stage. I hadn't realized how timid I was to get people's name and contact info prior to this. I definitely had a lot of practice with my pitch, and once those release forms were in hand, it really made things a lot easier. I will mention that it was a bit of a logistical nightmare to find people months after their images had been made to get them to sign a release, but thanks to so many people, Denise primarily, Hannah, Dr. Sony, with their sleuthing right to the last day before the show, we were able to get most. Cheers. But this dear person, my first friend, and the person that they gave me the confidence to go into the control room, I sadly was not able to get their release. So this is the control room view. This is where stents and TAVIs occur. In this control room is where I witnessed a heart bounce back to life after getting a stent put in. There are nurses monitoring the medication. There are technicians on standby to ensure the equipment is performing well. And I might be wrong here, but I do believe there is always a backup surgeon standing by monitoring the entire procedures. This is the side we will focus on. I was told that this room is identical as the other three, but this one had the most space. The room in the red rectangle is where the hero poster shot of Julia Stern was taken. Big thanks to Julia. And big shout out to Heather Castillo, who did all the incredible design work for the show. Thank you so much. I won't call you out, even though I know you're here. I want to share with you all contact print information that will show you the seams to my process. It's like, think about like 35 millimeter film, contact sheets, printing in darkroom. This is the same kind of thing, but digital. It'll give you an idea how quick I had to work to develop the look of the series. This first frame was taken at 7:23:16 a.m. And for the photo nerds, this was at 1/8 of a second shutter, f16, ISO 640. And the native ISO for the camera is 640, and I was at 24 mil. This is the second at 7:23:40, 7:24:14, 24:20, 24:35, 24:38, 25:10, 25:12, 25:41, 25:43, 26:10, 26:11. This is the final shot. This is the one that you see up on the wall. And then this is it before the edits. Before, after. And then this is the last frame, right here, at 7:26. So just over 3 minutes. Of course, at the time, I had no idea if this shot was going to make the edit. You just have a feeling that it's time to move on. So transitioning from this procedure room to just outside the doors where I would post up for portraits. So this is a major thoroughfare. Red is a side entrance to the nurses' station. Blue is the main entrance into the cardiac services unit. Yellow is a bathroom. And green is where TAVI images were taken. So that was the room that you just saw the images from that were taken in. And where I'm standing is where my subjects would pose for me. And these are the kind of portraits I would take. You can say that where I positioned myself was like a net catching salmon. As my relations started to build, so did my confidence to pitch my shtick. Once the presentation is over, I'll spark up the projector again for you to see the series. And then around the corner from here is where the next image of paramedics were made. As you can see, This is a pretty busy thoroughfare as well, with 2 sets of paramedics with patients waiting for admission into the Y2 nurses station. And then through the door, down the hall highlighted in green, is where Y2 nurses are located, and this is where the following set of images I took in the morning were made. I decided to show up first thing in the morning before the shift commenced. I was greeted by a Filipino nurse, Cliff Cruzat, another new friend, but this time I got his release, who happened to be pretty senior in the ward. So when I pitched him my shtick, he agreed. And after that, pretty much everyone seemed cool with me photographing them at work and in conversation. So here you will see people prepping for the day, talking about where things left off with the shift prior, where they were planning to go for vacation. I even heard someone crack a joke. So when I came back at other times to see if there were other opportunities for me to work alongside them, I really felt in the way, and patients were in the beds. We can all imagine what busy, stressed out, overworked, and mandated nurses look like, never mind having an artist bother them for a picture of them at work. So in the end, this set worked best. I'm going to touch quickly on the photos printed on fabric. As all you lighting techs know, the key to a great-looking and well-lit scene, especially when characters are involved, is to always have great stand-ins before photography. Everyone say hello to Christine Sagala, one of the stress test lab techs. She was so game to be my stand-in. This is the team from left to right. You've already met Christine. This is Rajinder Guman, and finally, Emily George. I had my phone out as I was framing and directing the shoot from it. This one was pretty good. The diptych, or the contrast between before and after, is a central theme in this work. It invites viewers to imagine how the 2 images connect, and in doing so, see themselves within the work. EKGs, stress tests, and echocardiograms help you and your physician gain a clearer understanding of your heart's health. I highlight these procedures to underscore their significance, especially for the Filipino community, to recognize the value of preventative care. Thanks to my dear friend Michael Telastis for the behind-the-scenes footage of me getting my EKG done. All right, I'm gonna take you back into a control room, but a smaller one. So on the left, you will see electrophysiology, where they study the electric pulses of your heart. And to your right is where pacemakers get put in. Electrophysiology, pacemaker. So when creating this work, I wasn't consciously referencing any artists or drawing direct inspiration from them. Instead, I approached it as an assignment, documenting the spaces where these procedures take place, much like I would an interior design firm or an architecture client. My focus was on framing and composition, seeking the lines and perspectives that would best convey how the space functions when in use. After chatting with Lisa Stinner, a colleague whose show opens this Saturday at CCAP, by the way, so let's all go, about the prints, she was kind enough to mention an artist who the images reminded her of, and the artist's name was Lynn Cohen. Prior to her mentioning her, I had never seen any of Lynn Cohen's work. I'll show you 2 images of hers, one that I think directly relates to CY, and the other is simply a beauty. So this is from her book entitled No Man's Land, The Photography of Lynn Cohen by Anne Thomas, 2001, Thames and Hudson Limited, London. And this is called Classroom. And this one is called Laboratory. In 2001, Lynn Cohen won the Scotiabank Photo Award. And in an interview, she explains why the pictures had no people in them. And her answer to that was, well, where would I put them? She thinks her images are suggested. She'd like to think that they were full of human presence in their absence. That it's just before they came, or after they left, or after they escaped. She was a funny artist. I have this book here and her catalog from her retrospective from Centre Pompidou here as well for anyone interested in having a peek later. Okay, so when Hannah and I were discussing the two images of the beds in the exhibition, she mentioned that images of empty hospital beds can be quite charged, meaning that a person might not have made it back from their surgery, or perhaps they had been pulled from the brink. The morning I had arrived to witness these beds in Y2 being made, there was a sense of pride and ownership by the person who was making them. I was told to wait until he had finished before I could make the following image. I like to believe that the meticulous way the beds were made mirrored the precision and care required to save lives here. It ended up being one of my favorites. This bed can be found in cardiac surgery inpatient unit located on the 4th floor of the Asper Institute at St. Boniface Hospital. Patients that need more time post-surgery to recover, they get moved to these rooms, which are more comfortable and private. When I think about beds, I am reminded of the artist Felix Gonzalez Torres and his work called Untitled 91. As Anne Umland, curatorial assistant for his Project 34 show at MoMA in 1992 writes, "Absence shadows Gonzalez Torres' work in every way. Rumpled bed sheets and dented pillows are presented both as evidence of and a sign for two absent bodies." These are the beds installed on billboards in Manhattan. And so when I look at these illustrations that we've created as a family, the impressions we made with chalk pastel collectively, I see the evidence of my father's strength, beauty, intelligence, and love. I'm gonna drink something. Okay. So my eldest Sophia, this is my eldest Sophia's work, doing her final touches before leaving to go back to Montreal for school in December 2024. So the idea of doing these collaborative drawings came from Inez and my time together, drawing objects she would find in her room that she would want me to draw. And like a good parent, I bribed her and told her that I would only if she would do her rendition beside mine on the same piece of paper. And these were the results. So the little charm on the right is mine, and the charm on the left is hers. And this is the kind of same area, my version of a toy ring on the right, and then the rest of it is all hers. And then this one is what I included in the original proof of concept for Hannah, Dr. Sony and Reed. Okay. So the decision to include our family story came after my first tea with Hannah G, when she introduced the idea of collaborating with GBG and cardiac sciences. Before this, my work primarily focused on my mother, Vita's immigration story, her journey as a garment industry worker, and her experience assimilating to Winnipeg in the early 70s. This project felt like a fitting opportunity to introduce my father's story and his connection to St. B Cardiac Sciences. As the show began to take shape, most of the photography from Cardiac was complete. The illustrations were in progress, and I had decided to include my father's operative report. I had also worked out the preventative care aspect through self-portraits. What remained was choosing which images of my dad to share. When I realized I didn't want to show him alone in any of the photos, a particular memory surfaced. Our day at the Prairie Dog Central to celebrate his 76th birthday on August 22, 2015, the year before he passed. The center image is of my family. The one on the right features my mother and father, and the image on the left is a group shot of mostly chosen family. These people were so dear to my dad. For context, I'd like to share where we grew up in Winnipeg's North End and how closely our homes were situated at the time. So the house with the flowers was our house that we grew up in. And you can see that in purple there. And in the late 70s and early 80s, there weren't many Filipinos in Winnipeg, certainly not as many as there are today. Having extended family and close friends living nearby was a rare and invaluable gift. The colored circles in the image correspond to family members from the group photo, marking where we all lived at the time within 3 blocks. Purple is us, red is Tito Emmy and Tito Lading Solis' family, green is Risalino and Leng Venzon family, and yellow is Ninang Rem and Ninong Jim Lackup family. To throw it back and provide you with some more context to show how far their friendship goes, here's a Christmas photo of us, and I think at the time my sister was Donnie, Inez's age now, which is around 5. So from left to right, it's Ima, Richie the baby, Uncle Lino, my dad, Tito Emmy, Tatang, Tito Luding, and then the bottom row is Doreen, Donnie, and me. Donnie's my sister, and then it's me. Tito Emmy, sadly, has been admitted to St. Pete. He suffered a heart attack a few weeks after the show opened. I think there has been some more developments recently, so I'm dedicating this talk to him, and I wish him all the best. To close, I'd like to share another photo from the past that my mother found recently from '95 of my dad with fam recovering from his surgery. In it, he's looking pretty darn good. Thank you to my family for trusting me to share a story. To my wife and art patron, Renee, I love you. Thank you to Inez, Sophia, Beckett, and Isla for their vibrant impressions on paper. To Cardiac Sciences, Dr. Soni and Reed, I appreciate your support and collaboration. Thank you to the St. Boniface Hospital and the St. Boniface Foundation for funding this exhibition and for your ongoing support at Galerie Buhler Gallery. And finally, my deepest gratitude to Hannah G. for your friendship, care, and willingness to explore my ideas for this show with me. Thank you. Oh, it's just, yeah, you might have missed it. Hannah G and I, we were having tea, and she had already spoken to Cardiac Sciences in advance. And so when she pitched it to me and that there was an opportunity to work with her and Cardiac, at the time I was like, well, my art doesn't really talk about that, right? But I thought, well, because of Dad's story, that was my reason. Yeah, it was just like, and then I had to do a pitch deck and do all that stuff. So, yeah.
I know that you went through some diagnostic testing, and that you're trying to encourage men in your community to take care of their health.
Yeah.
So when you look at the photos of yourself, do you feel because I know they also said, oh, you're the healthiest person who's ever taken this test. Do you feel really proud? Do you still feel trepidation? Do you feel, what do you feel when you look at your own photos?
I do feel proud. I'm happy that they turned, like I said, I just didn't really know what to expect because a lot of these places I've never seen prior to me walking into them for the first time, right? So no location scouts and just like, no location scouts. So anyway, technically I'm happy, and and then also and if I could, perform something that sparks in someone in my community to go and get their conversation going with their physician, then mission accomplished, so yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank
And
you.
Charles, thank you.
Thank you for coming.